Woke activists panic, threaten lawsuits as companies eliminate DEI. Shareholder groups are considering voting proposals and litigation to reinstate diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments at companies like John Deere and Lowe. The campaign to get rid of DEI at several companies run by Robby Starbuck led to several companies scaling back or eliminating DEI programs targeting businesses with conservative consumer bases. Activists like Brad Lander, New York City Comptroller, warned that companies altering DEI commitments risk litigation and further shareholder actions if they fail to justify their changes. Of course, the justification is the programs are illegal, the company is doing things they should not be doing, the employees don't like it, and the customers will not stand for it. Companies like Tractor Supply, Lowe's, and Molson Coors have made public or internal concessions, such as withdrawing from the LGBT Best Places to Work Index run by the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, and scaling back DEI-related employee resource groups. And from Bloomberg, investors craft counterattacks after influencers' anti-diversity blitz. Are these counterattacks actually going to work? I expect them to have about a zero effect, because the momentum is with anti-DEI. It's not with DEI anymore. Desperate activist investors are weighing how to push back on at least 7 public companies that have cut diversity, equity, and inclusion programs targeted by Robby Starbuck, who initiated an online campaign earlier this summer seeking to prove DEI has no place in business operations, which of course it does not. It's political, it's inappropriate, and it's discriminatory. It's also illegal to treat people differently based on their skin color, their sexual preferences, their gender, their religion. Everyone needs to be treated based on merit. This is civil rights law. It's not up for debate. The anti-DEI campaign is part of a broader conservative backlash to corporate America's push to grow more diverse and inclusive in the wake of George Floyd's death. The Supreme Court's June 2023 decision striking down affirmative action in university admissions had a further dampening effect on corporate DEI programs, though recent polls supposedly have shown the majority of businesses remain committed to diversity but have changed the way they talk about it. The people pushing this DEI agenda are now on the defensive. So they have fake polls, they have fake statements like this that say, oh, DEI is not getting rolled back, it's just they're talking about it differently. Well, in case you're curious, even from the Washington Post, as DEI gets more divisive, companies are ditching their teams. Zoom and Snap are among companies that have cut roles in recent weeks. This is from February. There's article after article after article. There are several people that can't get DEI jobs anymore. The consultants aren't getting paid. They're very unhappy about it. They're not getting work, as DEI starts to get completely removed from companies. Andy Bihar, CEO of shareholder advocacy group As You Sow, said his organization is considering responses to Starbuck ranging from helping investors write and file proxy ballot proposals to launching campaigns to replace board members at companies that reversed course on DEI. Quote, we as shareholders tend to work in the world of data as opposed to Robby Starbuck, who works in the world of radical white supremacist policies, Bihar said. If you go to a corporate board of directors and say, why are you backing radical white supremacist policies? You're not going to get a lot of success. Anti-DEI is mainstream now. Even if all there was the affirmative action Supreme Court ruling pointing out how illegal and inappropriate it is to discriminate against people for college applications based on their skin color, even if that's all that happened, that would have really been enough to knock this thing down. But there's so much more than that. There are lawsuits over this. Here's one of the articles from City News: DEI training spark workplace lawsuits because the trainings are completely inappropriate. Of course, there are going to be lawsuits. The activists don't get it. They're so far gone. They need to be talked to like children. Look at this article. Forbes supports DEI. They very much support DEI. I could point to about 15 or 20 really nonsensical articles of them supporting DEI, how it supposedly works, how it's not illegal, etc. But even in Forbes, they needed to do this article: DEI backlash, 4 legitimate concerns to avoid. This is trying to tell people, okay, I know you're into DEI, but you need to know this. These 4 things actually are completely indisputably illegal. You can't do these 4 things or your entire program is going to get thrown out, whether it's from customers, investors, a social media campaign, multiple lawsuits. You need to stop these things because even the people that are trying to defend DEI are saying these things really get your company in trouble. This is what they're catching us on. Concern number 1, hiring quotas. Although DEI quotas can help level the playing field for historically marginalized groups and help to send a message that a company is committed to diversity and inclusion, they also may be seen as discriminatory. Do you think they might? Because you're not the right skin color, so we're not going to hire you. We're going to discriminate against you. That might be seen as discriminatory. When a company sets aside a certain number of positions for members of a particular group, it can send the message that these groups are not qualified to compete on their own merits. Quotas can lead to resentment among employees who feel that they were not hired based on their qualifications, and it can be difficult to implement and enforce. It can be challenging to determine who's eligible for a quota position and how to measure the effectiveness of a quota program. No, it's an accounting program, so you just count. We have 2 of these, we have 4 of these. Like it's Noah on Noah's Ark, 1 of each. Of course, that's not legal in the United States, and of course, you're doing a disservice to the people who are hired just because of their skin color or their gender or their sexual preference. They're not going to be able to function in those jobs. And then how are they going to have a career if they can't function? Did they really think their agenda was going to go on for 30 or 40 or 50 years, the life of someone's career potentially? Concern number 2, bad guy training. Shaming people into feeling like the bad guy is not a helpful tactic in DEI training programs because it can lead to feelings of inadequacy, guilt, and defensiveness, which can make it difficult for participants to learn and grow. It's also what's getting you maniacs sued, such as in this article where they're talking about DEI training sparking workplace lawsuits. But it's also an abuse of power. You can't try to emotionally humiliate people for your own social and political goals if that's what you want to do. Just because they work for you, people aren't supposed to be subjected to that type of humiliation and treatment while they're at the workplace. It's not legal, it's not appropriate, and it's indefensible in a court of law. Additionally, shame can create a hostile work environment where people are afraid to speak up and share their experiences. This can hinder the goals of a DEI training program because when people feel ashamed, they may be less likely to take risks, ask questions, or challenge their own assumptions. This can make it difficult for them to learn new information and develop skills. Yeah, you can't harass your employees in any way, and you can't knowingly do it because you have a political agenda. Concern number 3, diversity tokenism. Promoting people solely based on their diversity carries potential risks that organizations need to consider. The perception of unqualified candidates. When the focus is solely on diversity, there's a risk of promoting individuals who may not be the most qualified or experienced for the role. This can lead to inefficiencies, lower productivity, and decreased employee morale. Tokenism. Promoting people from diverse backgrounds solely to fulfill diversity quotas can lead to the perception of tokenism because it would be tokenism. It'd be like, you just look like this, so we're doing this as a token, which is dehumanizing to the employees, the person you're doing it to, and the rest of the people that see it obviously done. You can't tell coworkers, I'm going to give this person a promotion, and have your coworkers not really understand that that person isn't qualified. Your manager knows who's qualified, but the employees who work with that person, they also know who's qualified because a lot of them do the same kind of work or interact with that person all day long. Lack of meritocracy. When promotions are not based on merit and qualifications, it can create a sense of unfairness and resentment among employees who have consistently demonstrated their capabilities. This can erode motivation, hinder employee engagement, and contribute to a toxic work environment. Because why should you even make an effort if it's not going to be recognized because you're not the right skin color? Lack of long-term commitment. If promotions are driven primarily by diversity goals without considering the long-term implications, it can result in a lack of commitment from the promoted individuals. They may not genuinely identify with the organization's values and goals, leading to higher turnover rates and a lack of sustained engagement. And it could create limited opportunities for growth. Promoting people based solely on diversity may limit their opportunities for growth and development because they won't be able to function in those jobs. Skin color does not automatically give you the skill set to function. And no, there are not people that because of your skin color are going to do your work for you. Unless you're pushing diversity. There's this false belief that if a white guy gets a job, there are white people that will somehow magically help that person out to do that job. This is their delusion, that it doesn't matter if you can do the job or not. Everybody's mediocre. Nobody has skill sets just because maybe someone else doesn't have a skill set. It doesn't work that way. People are really expected to produce when they're on their job. In the diversity hire situation, I've come across a number of articles where people are getting, quote, mentored, but really people are helping them do their job. They get elevated into a position they can't do, and then someone above them is expected to kind of help them along and do their work for them. That is not sustainable. She continues, when individuals are promoted without the necessary skills and experience, they may struggle to perform effectively in their new roles, hindering their career progression in the long run. Something I mention often, and they are using these people that don't deserve promotions, giving them promotions just so they can check off a box and feel better about their political ideology, which is a delusion. Ruining people's potential careers, because if it takes you a year to learn a job and be really good at that job, then take the year. If it takes a year and a half, take the year and a half. Do what you're passionate about. Do what you're good at. Get that opportunity to move ahead that you've earned. Build that foundation and then build the next foundation. Do the networking. All of these things are really possible for people, and they can do it and they can have careers, but you can't put people into positions they can't do, or you can absolutely ruin their professional lives. Concern number 4, public education overstep. Due to 2023 SCOTUS ruling against affirmative action, higher education institutions face a complex and evolving legal landscape when it comes to supporting diversity. Yes, colleges are being forced to pretty much accept people based on the appropriateness of them going to the school such that they can actually focus in the school when they're a student there. Colleges and universities must be careful not to discriminate against students or employees based on race, gender, religion, or other protected characteristics, while also not basing admissions decisions on these identities. This impacts organizations in higher education specifically, and organizations that do business with the government in conservative states with anti-DEI legislation. While laws haven't been written that limit organizations from doing DEI work, corporate attorneys are nervous with the legal precedent set by higher education and in some state governments like Utah, Florida, and Texas. Hiring quotas, bad guy training, diversity tokenism, and public education overstep will continue to be issues for organizations navigating the tricky waters of DEI. To protect the work and stay legal, stay the course, and mitigate these risks to weather the backlash successfully. In other words, shake the delusion, do what you can, but help people to actually earn what they're getting. Don't give people opportunities they don't deserve simply because of their race, gender, or sexual preferences. Litigation is also a threat if companies don't justify their altered DEI commitments delicately, according to New York City Comptroller Brad Lander. Last year already saw a rise in shareholder lawsuits alleging companies made misleading statements about their diversity goals after George Floyd's death or have fallen short of meeting their promises. Lander said he's regrouping after Starbucks' initial successes, but companies that cave to his demands should be on notice. The Comptroller of New York City manages funds across 5 city employee retirement systems that hold shares in the 7 companies targeted by Starbucks, totaling almost $500 million. So this guy, who has a public position in New York City, wants to use his power to politically push companies to do illegal things, and that they're on notice because he has no problem with taking not only his position and abusing it, but the actual earned retirement funds from employees of New York City. And he wants to use that power to influence the company, not even state resources, not even city resources, but employees' earned retirements. And that's how BlackRock was able to do it. That's how these big investment companies were able to do it. It wasn't their money. It was their influence using your money. But we're not going to stand by as folks with no track record in investing try to roll back proven strategies for advancing diversity of companies across the economy in effective ways, Lander said. Well, Lander, go do what you want to do. But if these campaigns need to go hot again, if we need to go Bud Light on these companies, We'll do it. It'll take, I don't know, about 5 minutes. We will take these companies down. They will lose their customers. And if they're going to be conservative customers and normal people, they're not going to stand for it. It's going to take a lot more than $500 million in assets to abuse to think that you're going to push a company into going back publicly on an illegal agenda. Not going to happen. Starbuck began his campaign by getting concessions from Tractor Supply in June. Fellow farm equipment maker John Deere followed 3 weeks later. He then extracted major concessions from Jack Daniel's whiskey parent company, Brown-Forman Corporation, Moe's Coors Beverage Company, and automaker Ford Motor Company. Among Starbucks' wins were promises announced publicly or in company-wide memos from Tractor Supply, Brown-Forman, Harley-Davidson, Lowe's, Ford, and Coors to withdraw from a Best Places to Work Index organized by the LGBT advocacy agency Human Rights Campaign. Those are the people that get to dictate to companies how they run their benefits departments, but also what their plans need to be for hiring and maintaining the kind of quotas and policies that they want to push their political agenda. Their response to these campaigns has been to put out what I consider to be a phony survey. Abandoning LGBT diversity hurts the bottom line, according to a new HRC survey. Major brands are dropping their commitments to diversity and HRC's Corporate Equality Index. So HRC is hitting back with data. If anyone is foolish enough to believe in this data, then good for them. But the companies understand and they know this is a nonsensical response. Lowe said it would merge employee resource groups under one umbrella and allow workers to join any affinity group they like, regardless of whether they identify with that group. So no exclusionary policies with not allowing employees to join resource groups, and the resource groups can provide mentoring opportunities. They're funded by the company to help the employees. So no, it's not going to be limited anymore to only certain skin colors or sexual preferences. Tractor Supply said it would scrap all DEI programs and related jobs. Coors announced it would stop linking executive compensation to employee diversity, paying executives bonuses, and also in some cases implying that they're not going to keep their job unless they discriminate against the employees that count on them and work under them. Jack Daniel's started its work on diversity and inclusion nearly 20 years ago and launched its official strategy in 2019. Since then, the world has evolved, our business has changed, and the legal and external landscape has shifted dramatically, particularly in the United States, according to Elizabeth Conway, spokesperson for Brown-Forman, the owner of Jack Daniel's. Quote, Brown-Forman adjusted its work to ensure it continues to drive our business results while appropriately recognizing the current environment. A spokesperson for Ford said the company's memo speaks for itself and did not elaborate. Quote, if you have conservative consumers you're depending on to walk through your doors, I think it's a really dangerous thing to align yourselves with a political ideology because DEI is essentially a Trojan horse for left-wing policy, according to Robby Starbuck in an interview. His strategy, he told Bloomberg Law, is to target companies that operate in areas of the country or have customers whose demographics indicate they are more likely to be sympathetic to his ideas. Starbuck declined to name his next targets, but he noted he has an eye on multinational companies with greater reach, revenues, and employee numbers. Well, before you know it, if you have some dedication to this, the norm will be companies staying out of these issues, and the weird companies will be the ones who get involved, according to Starbuck. Quote, I think in a weird way, DEI actually encourages a certain kind of racism, he said. I prefer to judge people based on sort of their actions, who they are, their character, the merit they show in their work. Lowe's was a bold target for Starbuck just 2 years ago. Its investors passed with nearly 60% of the vote a proposal from Arjuna Capital that asked the company to issue reports detailing racial and gender pay gaps. And when they say it's 60% of the vote, a huge percentage of that is major investment companies and people like that New York City Comptroller using retirement money to get all the votes, to vote on behalf of people whose money they manage to push this political agenda. It's not regular or normal people. It's not customers. It's not even regular investors. Lowe's issued a report in December 2022 that showed female associates' median pay in 2021 was about 97% of male associates' median pay, while minority associates' median pay was approximately 99% of non-minority associates' median pay. Sounds like it's pretty close. It also disclosed that women and minorities earn equal pay of comparable male and non-minority associates' pay, statistically adjusted for role and tenure. Natasha Lamb, managing partner and co-founder of Arjuna Capital, said she was disappointed that Lowe's was swayed by Starbuck, but doesn't have any plans yet to file another similar proposal. These activists were caught completely unaware by this because the strategy of going directly to customers is not something they ever thought could happen. And then getting enough customers that were interested, getting inside information as they got, because employees were sending copies of things that were happening at work, internal memos, training videos, personal testimony of inappropriate things happening at the companies. That was enough to convince the companies. The activists were never prepared for this because that was actually legitimate journalistic work. It wasn't an abuse of power. And these guys only know abuse of power. Quote, "It's critical that companies don't ignore the investor voice," she said. "If a majority or even a significant portion of a company's investors are pressing for best practice and improvement in companies, they should be listening, should be consistent, and uphold these goals and objectives. But they're not legal, and it's clear they're not legal, and they're unfair, and the customers aren't having it. So the activist investors can say, look, we want to push this agenda. We've gotten a couple of big financial companies to back us on this, but the companies know. Bud Light was not a one-off. Bud Light was something that also happened to Target. And it would take about 5 minutes to push a button on any of these companies if they go back to these illegal policies. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.